Hey guys, tonight's video is all about the World's Strongest Man 2022. Finally, Worlds has confirmed the date and the location. We did actually have this information a little while ago, so it's been confirmed as the 24th to the 29th of May. So it's going to be the last week of May and in Sacramento. As you'll see from the banner at the back there, I was lucky enough to get one of those. It's going to be over the next 3 years. I believe there's a 3-year contract, so it will also be back in Sacramento in 2023. What they haven't confirmed is the athlete lineup, but I have been putting together a little bit of a list myself. I wanted to also let you guys know I found out that there are going to be 5 heats of 6 athletes. This will allow them to compete in many head-to-head events, and it will also mean there won't be anyone going alone. So turning our attention to the athlete lineup, currently confirmed as far as I've sort of checked, Tom Stoltman will be going as the reigning current World's Strongest Man champion. If you guys didn't know already, the previous champion does get automatic qualification to the following year's competition. Next up we've got Adam Bishop, who qualified at the Giants World Open. That means he at least made the podium, and that guarantees his spot. Next up we've got Oleksii Novikov and Evan Singleton, both qualifying at the Strongman Classic. That was held at the Royal Albert Hall in the UK. Next up we've got Ian Bibi, also competing at the Strongman Classic and making the podium and getting his spot. So let's hope this year he actually turns up and competes. It would be awesome to see Ian Bibi. I just think he's missing out by not competing. For the last few years he's been given invitations, and for various reasons, not necessarily all in his control, he's not been able to compete. So if he does do it this year, it will be great. Next up we've got Luke Stoltman, who is the current Europe's Strongest Man, and that is how he qualified. Following on from him we've got Zadrina Cervicus Big Z, again a previous champion. He will always get the invitation to go back. It's just up to him if he's ready and if he's injury free. I do think after winning the World's Strongest Man Masters, it may have put a little bit more fire back in his belly, so I expect to see him there. Next up we've got Graham Hicks. He made the podium at this year's Britain's Strongest Man, so he will also be there. Following on from him we've got Matayush Gilaskowski. He has been given an invitation. I think last year he had some injuries due to some tricep surgery. I think he's on number 5 now, so hopefully that's a thing of the past, and we'll see him back competing this year also. Definitely exciting to see him competing, hopefully up against Martins Licis, if he decides to also accept his invitation. Next up we've got Charles Mitchell III, or Trey Mitchell III. He competed and won the Giant Arnold UK. Now although that wasn't a qualifier for the Arnold Classic, I do believe it's a qualifier, being a giant show for World's Strongest Man. So you could say he's ended up with a much better opportunity to compete on the world stage. Now next up, having competed at the Magnus Ver Magnusson Classic back in November, we have qualified Ethor Ingolfsson Melsted and also Maxime Boudreault. So both those guys will also be at this year's World's Strongest Man. And the final spot I know that is definitely confirmed is Jerry Pritchett, who came second at the World's Strongest Man Masters. He also came 4th at World's Strongest Man 2020, so never count out the Iron Outlaw. Now on top of that I decided to put together a bit of a personal list, and it was very quickly done and I've shared it online, and lots of people have been speculating how close to the real list I'm going to be. Now I'll let you guys know a secret. I have been speaking to someone who works for the World's Strongest Man. I can't say who that is, but they did say if they were a betting man that my list was probably the closest they've seen to a current list that they have in their possession. So I think it's a lot of good guessing, and you know, having done this for a few years now, I'm pretty confident I have a rough idea of who they'll be looking at. So running through my list, we've got the people we've already mentioned, so Tom Stoltman, Adam Bishop, Oleksii Novikov, Evan Singleton, Ian Bibi, Luke Stoltman, Zadrina Savickas, Graham Hicks. We've also got Mateusz Kieliszkowski, Trey Mitchell III, and then there's some extra names that I've chucked in as well as obviously Maxime, who was also confirmed a minute ago. So extra names would be Marcus Ingvarsson, I think that's how you say it. He is Sweden's Strongest Man for 2021, so I think being the current national champion, he should get an invitation. Next up we've got Kim Uyarak, and he is 5 times Greenland's Strongest Man. Now having won that so many times, I think it's a bit of a crime that he hasn't had an invitation, so fingers crossed the guys in charge can have a think about his name. Definitely someone who deserves an opportunity. Next up you've got Mitchell Hooper. I put him down originally as Australian, but I believe he's now living back in Canada, so being Canadian and Australian, I think he needs to decide where he's going to be competing if he gets his opportunity. Probably Canada. So I do think, having had Maxime and JF already in the mix, it's going to be a reserve opportunity for him if they decide to take him on as an extra name this year. Next up, we've got Brian Shaw and Martins Licis. Both those guys, I've put them down for different reasons. I've got Brian down because he's a 4 times world's strongest man, so he'll get his invitation based on being a previous champion. And I've got Martins down as the Rogue Invitational Champion for 2021. Now, having said that, Martins is also the 2019 World's Strongest Man. So Martins has got a couple of options as to why he'll be invited, and personally, we're all pretty confident here he's going to get an invitation. Definitely a great athlete and always comes comp ready. When it comes to the competition that matters, that's when Martins will shine, and to see him back against Matayush will be awesome. Definitely a great lineup for this year's World's Strongest Man. Even if a lot of this is guessing, I'm sure we'll be pretty close when we get the official list later on this year. Next up, I've got Evgeny Markov. He's a new name to some of you guys. He is 6 times Russia's strongest man. Now, I'm not sure why he hasn't had an invitation before, but he's definitely going to be someone on their radar, especially as he's been invited this year to the Arnold Classic. Interestingly, you know, he's come out of nowhere in terms of getting these invitations, especially to the Arnolds, but being a 6 times champ, he's definitely worthy of that. Next up, we've got Ivan Makarov. I've put his name in the mix, and also Payman Meherapura here. I don't know if those two guys are going to make it due to travel restrictions, but I was trying to complete a list of a world's strongest man. So having a better mix of countries, not too many American and UK athletes. I'm from England myself, but that doesn't matter when it comes to creating this kind of list. I really focus on, as a TV show, as a competition, who would you want to represent all the different countries? Because, as I've said previously in other videos, it's a TV show first and a competition second. So it is actually a TV show of a competition, not the other way around. Every other event that you will love from Strongman has been spawned from this TV show. And that's where you get the live shows from Giants Live and all the various other promoters out there. So it will always be seen as a television show. There'll be a different angle to this competition. They'll be looking for many different characters and faces, people from all walks of nature, to create that world story so that it will resonate with more people around the world, not just England or the UK and not just America. The other names that I've got on the list are Kelvin DeRuta, I think that's how you say his name. He was the Strongman Champions League champion last year, so again, another potential person they could add into the mix. I think previously Ervin Toits of Estonia has also received his invitation based on winning the Strongman Champions League, so it will be interesting to see if they go that same route this year. Next up, I've put Gabriel Pena, the Texas Titan, recently pulling over £1,000 at a Giants Live show. He's also someone that's competed at Worlds previously. He's young, he's hungry, and I think he's a bit of a favourite amongst some of the promoters, and I can see why. He's a lovely guy, and he can fly the flag for Mexico or America. I think it will be Mexico, though, on this occasion. Next up, I've put Pavlo Cordiaca, the official Strongman Games champion. Now, technically, that would qualify you for a Giants Live show, but I think on the calibre of athlete that he is from the Ukraine, I think he's definitely worthy of an invitation, and someone that can sort of team up with the other athlete from Ukraine, which is Oleksii Novikov, and those two guys could definitely fly the flag for their country. Next up, I've got Mikhail Shivlyakov of Russia. I don't know how injured he is right now, but I do like to see him in the mix. He's definitely a character and someone who has served his country and also served his time as an athlete for World's Strongest Man. So hopefully he gets the option to compete, and if he is injured, hopefully he will give that opportunity to one of the younger or newer athletes. Next up, I've got JF Caron. I say Caron, people say Caron. He has already been mentioned, but he will definitely be in the lineup, I'm pretty sure. Mr. Consistent, one of the greatest all-round strongmen, always coming 4th or 5th at World's Strongest Man, and breaking into the podium in the last few years was great. So it'll be awesome to see him fighting again, to see if he can take the title, or will he make the podium? We'll have to wait and see. Next up, I've got Konstantine Janashia, another athlete that's done really well in the past, coming 4th in his debut. I'm just not sure how he's doing injury-wise or where he is in terms of peak strength, but he does have a couple of months to get himself in fighting fit shape, so hopefully the Georgian Bull will be back. Next up, I've got Rauno Heinla, another great athlete. He was missing from the lineup for quite a few years, and hopefully any issues that there may have been put to one side, and he can compete based on his talent, based on the fact that he's one of the greatest deadlifters in this lineup, especially for reps. And it's also great to have someone representing Estonia as well. So Rauno gets my vote. Ivars Smorkstelis of Latvia, I've got his name in the mix. He's always a dangerous athlete, did really well at other competitions, competed at the World Ultimate Strongman, competed at the Shore Classic. He's definitely got a lot of love on all the different competition scenes, and definitely someone who should also be at World's Strongest Man. Next up, Jerry Pritchett, we mentioned him earlier. And then I've got Stefan Torferson, who is Iceland's Strongest Man 2021. Now, not taking anything away from him, as I think he said, Hafthor has retired, or he's not doing strongman anymore, or right now, focusing on his fight, which will happen at some point, I'm sure. But for the moment, Stefan is the champ. So being Iceland's Strongest Man, I personally feel he deserves the opportunity to compete, because that is the same route they would have given Hafthor. So good luck to Stefan. Fingers crossed, buddy, you get that call. And finally, I've got Travis Ortmeyer, the Texas Stoneman. Someone who made a big comeback last year after 10 years, and also someone who has really taken the bull by the horns and got really involved with the competition. So a bit of a character, someone that's desperate to kind of prove himself again, not just for himself, but for the fans and family members and everyone around him. And he's doing a really great job. So that was my list of 30 athletes. Now, that was what I was alluding to earlier. Some of these newer names may get a better opportunity this year because World's Strongest Man has finally seen the light and they've gone back to 30 athletes. Thank God. Previously it was 25, and it makes picking these names awfully difficult. And next up, I've got a list of reserve athletes. Those include Spencer Remick, Bobby Thompson, Kevin Ferris and Matthew Ragg of New Zealand. Now, there was a lot of debate over whether Bobby or Kevin should already be in my top 30, and I wholly agree with that. Unfortunately, there's only 30 names, and who do you take out? Now, if you're going on strongest athlete, best athlete, definitely those two guys would be in, and there's a couple of other names I would probably take out. No disrespect to anyone, but Ivan Makarov would probably be swapped out for one of those guys, and possibly even Travis, depending on how he's doing right now in terms of his overall numbers. But you can't have all Americans and all UK athletes dominating the field. It doesn't look good. It's not a true representation of the world's strongest men or man. It just ends up being a bun fight between the UK and America, which is what people complained about the last few years. Unfortunately, there was not much the promoters could do. They had lots of issues with the lockdowns, with travel restrictions, and it obviously made it very difficult to have a much better, well-rounded collection of athletes to compete. So no disrespect to anyone that's not in my top 30, I'm sure they don't care, but I would put Bobby and Kevin in and swap some other guys out, but trying to create a more worldly list, you would add in other names like Payman, Ivan and some of the other guys. It just depends on how those travel options go for them. So it will be interesting to see how close my list really is when we get the final list. I know for sure at least 13 or 14 names are confirmed, so it's only really just over half the field left to choose from. If I get any more information about the competition, about the events, about anything you guys are going to want to know, definitely follow me at The World's Strongest Fan on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on YouTube obviously, but I think the main 3 pages I'm on are YouTube, Facebook and Instagram. If you're following me there, you'll definitely not miss anything, whether it's a meme, a comment, leaking information about the World's Strongest Man, anything I can do to get that fan information out there. Hopefully this year I might get the opportunity to work with the World's Strongest Man, who knows? But for now, it's just a quick list of athletes I think will be competing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe, and I'll catch you again as always on the next one.